Hi guys, my name is Anna, you're watching simcue, and without further ado, let's get into this video. So today I'm once again trying something a little bit different because one of you actually requested that I build my childhood home. Now I just have to count a little bit here so that I can keep going. So let's see here, it would be like there, and then sink, and then the corner, and a stove, and a fridge, but that feels a bit too short, so there probably. So I thought it would be a really fun idea to try out something a little bit different, but that also means, as you've probably already noticed, that I do not have the camera on because I felt like it would be way too overwhelming having to do this the first time and then also having to worry about like looking into the camera. So we're really just taking some baby steps here. I would like to be able to do everything at once, but I also have to just admit that I am not very good at these kind of things. Like I'm still not super good at video editing either, so there are just so many things going on at the same time. So I hope to be able to do these in the future as well, like practice doing them a little bit more. But yeah, for now, I just think it's a lot safer for me to just accept that I can't do everything at once. So hopefully in the future I will be able to do this and also have the camera on. So the first thing is trying to get some of these proportions right, which is so much easier said than done. I'm definitely already struggling a little bit, and I can tell that it's only going to get so much worse. Right now we have this weird hallway space going on, and definitely was a very weird upstairs, but also I'm very limited to the angles that I can actually play around with. So we'll just have to make do, but I am a little bit worried about having to do a basement because the basement would actually be placed somewhere under here, but I'm a little bit unsure of how we're actually going to access it because the access point in real life is underneath these stairs, but I don't think that I can fit in any other stairs because the door is supposed to be here. I am okay with moving the door just so that it makes sense, but I still guess that I can't really squeeze in another stair. How would I do that? Okay, so I played around with it a little bit and it is simply not possible. So I guess the only thing we can really do is elongate these two rooms. Why is there... Oh, of course do that on top as well. Sure. And then move these stairs. Oh my gosh. Copy them and place them underneath as well. Why am I so bad at this? I feel like this is taking so many steps back because I'm like working as I'm trying to speak. Okay, I think it's a good thing that there's not a camera on because I think I was just frowning the entire time looking through this catalog. Right now I've turned it to base game because I found that that was probably the most promising. So the thing is that these windows kind of look similar, but I know I will be running into problems because there's only this one type. But yeah, basically it is like multiple, but it's only like two. It has to delete this part. It's only like two of them. And then there's this one that I can better tile, but it doesn't have this part. But because there are more windows similar in style to this one, and I like that there's a bit more detail on this one, we're going to go with this one. So in this weird little hallway, it looks like so much window. Like they look so wide. Oh, I don't know. But like that, and then like that. I think, oh, that's also the same spacing. That actually looks pretty nice. I guess I'll take that. I'll just check the height. So what I like to do is that I like to get a mannequin, because then you can easily check like what a sim would see. And I feel like this is a good height for these windows. So let's roll with that. Since I was a child, there's been a lot of renovations, a lot of changes, a lot of updates to the house. But I thought it would be a lot more fun to try and build it how it used to look back in like early 2000s. And you are going to absolutely hate what I'm about to do because upstairs, these are two rooms, but the window was actually in the middle. So luckily, because these tile so well, actually not an issue, but this wall was just like a temporary wall. So there was just like a gap here. When I was younger, I could literally crawl between the wall because there was a window in the way. Like they just put up a wall, and the window was more like solid. So there's generally just glass right here, and I could crawl through it. And I sometimes did because it was just a lot of fun. Because then you could like run around, like out the door, in the door, through the little weird gap between the wall and the window. Oh, good times, man. Good times. So over here, the windows would probably be, yeah, just like that. Now, I'm pretty sure even back then we just had a white door with some glass. So that is, I guess, what we're going for. It wouldn't really be wooden, but I think that's the best that we can do. It's not that this needs to be a full-on like base game build. I just find that base game actually have some pretty nice things for early 2000s, I guess. Now inside, the doors at that time would have been more of a orangey kind of wooden door. Maybe these are the best. Yeah, probably. I'm not saying that these are well-placed doors, but this is the placement of the doors, you know? It's yeah. So part of the reason I thought it would be fun to do an early 2000s version of this build is because the early 2000s had some crazy colors. Now, the flooring wasn't too bad, but once we get into the wallpaper, oh my gosh, it was just so many different colors. Like, I remember my childhood home and I'm like, yuck. So I was thinking about using this one, but the planks are a little bit too wide, and it's the same thing for this one. And honestly, even though this is what they call basketball planks, I kind of like the look of them because they are that more like orangey tin, and the planks are like very narrow, and it also has a weird shine, which I just remember that they had. So in the living room, there was just gray carpet. This was the era of ugly gray carpets everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. And then for the stairs, a little white fence, and boom. Yes. So for the walls, this room was green. This room was yellow. My sister's room was blue. My room was pink. And my parents decided to also go for yellow. Because aren't those just some lovely colors? I actually feel like my parents' yellow was a little bit more curry. Do we have a curry yellow? Ooh, this one. This is good. So for the kitchen, I feel like we have two strong contenders that kind of catch the vibe of what the kitchen used to look like. But the countertop was actually gray. And because of that, I think we will go with... So it would be like this. I realize I am missing some windows. And then like that. And then we'll get a corner piece right here. Very nice. And we'll get some windows right here. Very nice. And we'll also get a little end piece right there. So we can also push this a little bit. We don't have that weird thing where it's in the corner. So I finished the kitchen and I found that this table from Dream Home Decorator is the only one that really has a rounded edge. So even though it looks a little too modern for my liking, that's what I ended up going with. And then I've been struggling with the chairs because we had ugly ass chairs. Now I think I'm going to go with these ones because the shape is a bit more similar, but I cannot find anything that looked like the chairs that we had in my childhood home. Because it was, yeah, basically this shape, but then the seat was this like dark blue with weird red orangey. You couldn't really figure out if they were dots or flowers. So these are way too light, way too nice, but I think it's the best that we can do. So for the living room, we had these big, ugly ass brown leather couches. I don't like the siding of this one, and I don't like that this one has a wooden frame. This looks a little too much like fabric, so I think this is the one that passes the best, even though the look of it is a little too modern again. If these weren't like massage chairs from Spa Day, I feel like these are actually probably what came the closest. But no matter what, I just come turning back to this one, so maybe we actually do have to change the couches. So we had this nook over here, and I remember being one of the first pupils in my class to actually have 2 home computers. Yes, I'm of that age where we didn't have our own to begin with. We just had the family's computer, but we had 2. And I'm pretty sure that one of us was seated on just a chair from the kitchen. A little just stole a chair. And then maybe the other one was in an office chair. So I realized that I actually have no idea what my sister's room used to look like. I just remember it being blue, and then she had this dresser, and I remember that very clearly because in this cabinet, she used to hide her candy. And I figured that out, and I ate some of her candy, and it turned out that it was too old, and I got pretty sick from it. So that was karma that hit me in the face. So right now it's very bare. I think I'll just decorate everything later. But I have no clue what her room looked like. So I don't really remember what my parents' room looked like either. I just found this random bed, and I feel like it was a time where you didn't really care about colors matching. And then I remembered that actually there was no proper wall between our rooms. I don't know if my parents were just afraid of me like sleeping on my own. But basically, I think that was part of a wall. I'm a little bit unsure, but otherwise it was just divided up by these dressers, basically. And then in between these, there was just like a curtain. So I could really just run all the way around. It was pretty fun. But thinking back on it, I'm like, why did we not have a wall? Hi, it's me, future Anna here. You probably didn't expect to see me, and I surely did not expect having to show up, but nothing went smoothly with this recording. Right now, you're actually supposed to watch me furnish my own room, which I thought was, kind of important, but I somehow managed to lose that footage. I have the audio, but that doesn't really help anything, and then I have this footage of me decorating everything. But with this one, I decided not to do a voiceover for some reason, so here I am coming in clutch. So the good thing about this footage is that this is when I went around and decorated everything, so you will get to see pretty much every room one by one. So after finishing cluttering the kitchen, we're moving on to the mud room, I believe it's called, but we just used this as an entrance, which was very common. We did have a formal entrance, but we never used it. And then I added these shelves for some of the windows because I remembered my mom having flowers in the windowsills. And I also remember one of them being fake, which I found out when my mom asked me why I was watering the fake plant. I had literally watered that plant multiple times, and so had everyone else in the household. Now for the living room, I decided to add some children's stuff just from the game, even though we didn't really have these particular pieces. But we were very present in the living room and definitely played there a lot. We had this big space. The living room was clearly supposed to both have like couches, but also a dining area, but we never had the dining area, so we just have so much space to play around, which we did really often. And I'm also just adding some decor to make this feel a little bit more lived in. Now above the couch, I remember having this really big painting that I very much disliked, and so eventually I just decided to paint my own, because if it was something that I had made, my parents of course had to hang it up, which they did. And I will say that it's actually a very, very nice painting, so I got away with that quite nicely. Now we're in my sister's room. I think I already mentioned that I don't actually really remember what her room looked like. I just remember her having a lot of books, like she read a lot, and then she also had a lot of posters. My sister is technically 4 years older than me, but that also means that around this time I would have been like 7 and she would have been 11, so I feel like it's very much a time where we were both technically children. So that's why both rooms feel kind of childish. In a short while, we're moving on to my room, and I was very much in a princess phase, believe it or not. I loved everything princess, everything pink. Above my bed, I remember having this like canopy, kind of like a mosquito net, and so I tried to mimic that with these curtains. A lot of the decor is also just for like the aesthetic, like I didn't have this precisely, but it really adds to the princess vibe. Now in a short while this clip will be over, so I will leave you. I will be back for the tour, and then past Anna will take over. So the basement was made up of like 2 separate rooms, and it's because the wall here in the middle was clearly supporting the wall up here, which is also why I aligned it with it. And the only thing I really remember about the basement is that I was absolutely terrified of it. I hated our basement. I have no idea what was actually really in here, because I tried to go down here as little as possible. And then I vaguely remember my dad maybe having like an exercise bike down here. Okay, there we go. Like I said, this was only accessible if you like crawled underneath it. And to be honest, I don't really know the actual like purpose of this. I just know that at some point my dad had to go in there, and I was so scared because he just disappeared into this weird black room, and then he was just gone. And I was told to hold the flashlight so he could find his way out. I was like, Dad, I'm scared. And there were spiders. I'm still very, very afraid of spiders, which was also why I didn't like our basement. So in real life, there's obviously something covering these so that you don't just fall and break an ankle. And I was kind of hoping that we had something in here. Actually, this one is probably pretty perfect. Oh, that is just perfect. So that light would pass through, but you wouldn't break an angle. There we go. Okay, very nice. So now we have the driveway and the garden. And then we're done. Awesome. Okay, so I've already run into a weird problem where I can't place tile here. And I have no idea as to why, because the terrain is leveled. The terrain is exactly how it should be. So why? Because I would really like to use this, even though it was just like rectangles. I feel like the texture of these stones were very similar to what we had. I realized it's because I placed this basement. So if I do that, can I then... Oh, okay. Well, that was a nice quick fix. So I want to just add windows basically all the way around. Oh, wow, that really stretches. Well, that's fine. And then we'd had like a wooden panel. Yeah. Probably just this simple siding. Yep, looks good to me. Maybe a little column to finish it off. Oh, I want to use this, but it's such a shame to add another pack. Oh, but that just... Ooh, maybe this one. Yeah. Well, I need one straight column. Base game, please. Please. It's really just because I want to finish off this edge. It looks a little unpolished, so I feel like that looks a little bit better. Okay. And then a little bit of a terrace thingy going on here. Shall we see what we can find in the outdoor furniture? Honestly, I guess just like this. Though the chairs were actually blue. I guess the table was as well. We had this like plastic set. I might honestly go for these crazy... That would be kind of funny. It would also be kind of silly. Maybe just these. There we go. Okay. Like that. That is... That's basically what I remember. My mum would have had some plants. So let us go get some plants. I did add... Which one was it? This one inside. But I do think it's very terrace-like. Oh, and she did have these, like, blue pots hanging on the wall. Oh, there's this one. Oh, I think this might actually be quite nice. So, she had 2 of these, which took me years to figure out were fake. Yeah, apparently nothing can really grow in here because it's summertime. When the sun is on, it becomes, like, so warm that plants just die. So, in my childhood garden, we actually had a lot of fruit trees. So, we had 3 apple trees, and then we had 2 pear trees. What? Hello? Why? This pear tree maybe? We had 2 pear trees, like there. And we also had a cherry tree down here. Wait, why is that grown? What? I don't always get debug. Is this cherry tree? And then we had weird, like, flowers down in this area because this is where we buried all our dead animals. Yes, my mum had a bird, as I mentioned, and then my sister and I, we had in total 3 hamsters. We started out with 2, and then when they passed, we just got 1, and then I think that's it. And then I had a swing. I love my swing. So we had this right here. Okay, and then one last very important detail, because the year that I was born, a tree was planted. I believe it was actually a maple tree, and I suppose since there was later made an extension, it would be like down here, but the garden is just like way longer. So for now, we will just put this American beech tree? Beech? What the... Okay, but this tree, because I couldn't find a maple tree. So we'll just put that right there. That is my tree. Look at it in all its glory. Yes. Okay, and that is pretty much it. I'll add some final details and then I'll give you a tour. Alright, I am back. I just loaded up the game to give you a little bit of a tour. And if you're thinking, that's not a very good looking house, you would be absolutely right. Because I myself was a little bit surprised when I noticed that this was the front of the house. But literally, this was the front of the house. There was just this window and then a door like right at the corner. There used to be a staircase, but it was removed because we never used this entrance. So let's go to the entrance we actually use, which we have here. So this is the mud room. I think in the video I mentioned that we had a hamster. I didn't want to add that in also because it's very big. So I did add a fish. But washer, dryer, some cabinets, And then over here, this used to be like a big freezer. And then I remember that my mom, she had this little orange tree, so I sized down this one. Then we have the bathroom, nothing exceptional, but I do remember it being actually a much darker blue than this. It had these dark blue accents that were super duper ugly, and this weird shelving situation above the sink where technically the light was attached. So, and yeah, I don't know if I already mentioned, but literally walked in the door and then immediately someone on the toilet. Like, why did we design bathrooms like that? And then this was just a room of miscellaneous. I don't even really know what was in here, but this was later turned into a hallway, and then we built like 2 rooms, so my sister's room and my room down here. This was when I was about 10, so this is before that. And then of course we have the terrace, nothing special, and then a very, very big garden with all of the fruit trees that I just honestly couldn't be bothered to have to grow. But my swing set, of course, and I did just change out this tree because I felt like the other one, the one that was here before, was a little bit too small, and it was a very big tree. So from the entrance, you move into the kitchen, and this was just, it was a very simple, very plain kitchen, white cabinets, technically a gray counter, but you know, nothing special. These lamps were also very blue. I don't know if my mom had a thing for like blue. The kitchen itself, I actually think is a little bit difficult to see here, but technically the kitchen is this like pastel-ish green, grayish color. Yeah, there were a lot of colors. And I think I also mentioned that these chairs were actually dark blue and then with like orange spots. And then here we had a bench, and these are all, well, random pictures. Technically it was pictures of me and my sister. I think it was like a 3x3, but that was pretty much the only pictures we had of us. And then moving into the living room, which because of the proportions is a little bit bigger than I would have liked. I technically would have liked the wall to be here, but that's okay. So we had the sofa situation, the big ass TV. Then I remember we had these 2 weird paintings of like Egyptian pharaohs, and I don't know why. I don't know the story behind them. My parents have never been to Egypt, so I have no clue. And then over here, we had the computers. Very, very cool. Very big computers. And I did get to play games on them. Play some children's games. Danish children's games. You would not know them. Oh, and we got this with an event. I also added in a telephone, both in the living room and also out here in the kitchen, because we had that back then as well. And then I didn't do too much about this hallway because, again, it was supposed to be a lot smaller. But from the hallway, we are moving upstairs. So we have my parents' room, which I did make a little bit smaller because it was simply way too big. My room, my sister's room, and a little office. And this weird room, again, with just stuff. We just had a lot of stuff. So my parents' room decorated very, very simply. I don't really remember what it looked like. My sister's room decorated to be like, I don't know, like she was probably 12 years old when it looked a little similar to this. And of course, I just added some sim stuff. I really don't remember what it looked like. Very basic office. And then my room in here, very pink, very princessy. I loved to draw. I definitely had a table similar to this where I could just sit and draw, and then a lot of toys. And I think I also mentioned in the video a thing that I remember very, very clearly, this whole closet set up where you could just like run in between, and I could also squeeze here between the closet and the wall and run out the doors. I wasn't always allowed. I was definitely sometimes told to not run around, but I sometimes did it anyway. Jumping upon the hamper, I remember, and then there was a windowsill that I could kind of crawl. And I also remember my mom having multiple times told a story of how I crawled up between the closets, like 2 hands on one side, 2 feet on the other side, and then slowly moving up until I actually kind of got stuck. Like I couldn't get down. I guess I didn't really have the strength to do the same movement downwards. And my mom, she basically had to catch me and scold me and tell me to never do that again. I did that again later, but this time I managed to get down, so no problemo. And then we had the creepy basement that I just remember picking up sodas, and I think I also told having to hold the flashlight for my father as he crawled into the black abyss. Yes, that was my childhood home. It was so fun building this. Like, there are just so many memories. It was so nostalgic to actually get the opportunity to build this. So thank you very much to the person who requested this build. This was my childhood home. Nothing special in particular. As I said, it went through multiple renovations while we lived there, so it's definitely a little bit more modern at the end, but it was very fun to get to do an early 2000s build. So with that, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. This was definitely a challenge, like the whole recording process of this, and I think editing, I realized that this is way more difficult than I thought it was going to be. But I'm very much looking forward to creating more of this style and hopefully getting a lot better. With that, I wish you a lovely day. I hope to see you next time, and bye!